The state of the DCEU has been truly uncertain as of late. Ever since Zack Snyder left the project of Justice League in 2017, or earlier rather, it has caused a rift. Ever since he left, Joss Whedon took over and, quite frankly, overly edited this movie and completely ruined what could have been great, causing actors like Ray Fisher to lash out on WB, Ben Affleck leaving the role of Batman, and for some unknown reason, we got Henry Cavill as Superman, not knowing if he's going to be Superman. We don't know that, which, quite frankly, is an absolute injustice. We may never see guys like them again, or Jared Leto, for that matter, as the Joker, if, if they're going to go in completely different directions. Like, I'm excited for the Batman. I really am. But I would like to know what's going on with the larger universe, if it's done or not. But anyways, back to this. This is what I have been waiting years for. This is Zack Snyder's Magnum Opus, to a trilogy that started with the magnificent Man of Steel, to the controversial yet wonderful Batman v Superman Ultimate Edition, mind you, that's the one that I like. And now we get the end of a wonderful trilogy that could have been the start of something really great. If you watch this film, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, because Zack Snyder does a wonderful job world building here. Given that he had the task of doing this all on and by himself, essentially having to start with Batman v Superman, where he had to basically push everything into one movie in order to build to a future. But here, he lays the groundwork even better. But unfortunately, we may not see what he had in mind. But at least, we get to see a peek of what this wonderful director had, what this wonderful director created for us. Sit back and let me tell you why Zack Snyder's Justice League is a must-watch film. Now, I don't want to go too deeply into spoilers right away, but I'm going to essentially give you all the reasons why this movie is worth your time. Now, it may be a 4-hour runtime, which may be daunting for some, but it's essentially going to give you what you saw in 2017, but with far better writing for characters like Cyborg and the Flash, far more fleshed out scenes, and a whole litany of added stuff. Well, restored would be the proper way of saying it, because we get to see characters like Darkseid, like Granny Goodness, as briefly as she is seen, and we get to see perhaps the most exciting character, which I will go on to talk about later on in this video in the spoilers. But anyways, enough of that. Right from the beginning, you could tell that this is Zack's film, because we don't have that ridiculously edited moment from the theatrical with Henry Cavill's mustache edited out, making him look ridiculous. We don't have that here. Instead, we get a very much needed version of Superman's death scene in Batman v Superman. We get this one moment where essentially the world will hear his death. His cries will be heard everywhere. And essentially, a month has passed, and now Bruce has to find a way to unite those who can help him stop the evil forces that are coming. Which, yes, is, of course, the plot of the theatrical. But mind you, the theatrical is essentially Zack's film, but completely overly edited. and with stuff that didn't make sense. In fact, also, Joss would cut scenes, cut character development for characters like Cyborg, which doesn't make sense. Cuts stuff with the Flash that would have been wonderful if included. There's just so much goodness to unpack here, and enjoy. Truly was a wonderful experience watching this movie. It's worth mentioning that this movie is presented in a aspect ratio that does not cover your full screen, and that it's almost essentially told in parts because of how long it is, which is kind of nice, because then you feel, even though it's a 4-hour runtime, you can pretty much have it all organized for you in parts. But I tell you now, this film is worth the watch. You get to see everything this man had planned from the beginning. And it's a shame if none of this stuff carries on to a sequel, because this is far better than anything that would have been planned with Joss Whedon if he were to direct more films, which I think it's safe to say he won't. But needless to say, I knew there was a reason why there was some stuff that I enjoyed in the theatrical that still stood out above the rest of the crap when I saw it here, because a lot of the stuff that I enjoyed in theatrical was filmed by Zack, including the scene where Clark gets resurrected. That whole thing with the fight with the Justice League was his scene. And I really like that scene. Especially, of course, when Superman gives that look to Flash as he runs by him. I mean, that stuff's gold. You can't take that away. I'm so glad that was still in there, because it's just too cool. People will complain about the accent of Gal Gadot's Kal-El No, but it really isn't a problem. It almost sounds better even here. And quickly, without going full into spoilers, I would say that Cyborg, as foretold, is the heart of the movie. A lot of the plot centers around him, and he's far more fleshed out, has a lot more backstory, does a lot of things that I enjoyed seeing, especially in scenes where he helps people that are just, struggling, which, is great. I don't know why Joss would take stuff like this out. It just doesn't make sense. But before I ramble on without not knowing what to say, I think I'm just going to go ahead and cut the non-spoiler review here. And, if you haven't already, if you're watching this and you haven't seen the movie, go see it. This is worth the price of HBO Max alone. This was the movie that everybody wanted to see. Worth the hype. Please watch it. We want more from the Snyderverse, and especially the thing I would campaign for is more of Henry Cavill as Superman. So please let your voices be heard. Watch this movie, break records, and anyways, stay tuned for the spoilers. I will give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And now I'm going to give you a quick spoiler recap on the stuff that I really enjoyed seeing from this Snyder Cut and why it truly made it worth watching and special. First off, I think it should be well known that the big special character that I might have hinted at earlier is Martian Manhunter. Yes! How cool was this? This scene where he basically disguises himself as Martha, goes to see Lois in her time of need and says, "We want you among the living. You need to snap out of this grief and come back." Which, although I would have hoped it was the real Martha, it was still cool. It was still such a great reveal, and it makes a lot of sense with the amount of stuff this guy knows to appear to Lois and essentially get things going again, because perhaps he knows that she is the key as well. And it confirms everyone's theories and what Zack Snyder said himself, that the man that essentially put Kal-El in the room in Man of Steel was Martian Manhunter. So how cool is that? It's just great fan service, you know. It's so cool that he would do something that didn't seem very obvious to most in Man of Steel, and do it here in his version of Justice League, which is amazing. But anyways, now on to the main event, perhaps what everyone tuned in to see, Darkseid. Oh my goodness, we got so much good stuff here. While all it, it's too bad we didn't get to see any fight scenes with the Justice League versus him. It was still more than enough for me to at least see this guy in action. We got to see the power he holds in nightmare scenes from Cyborg as he imagined possible futures, which, again, really cool stuff that Cyborg was able to connect. He was just such a good addition to this movie. In this version, Cyborg is one of the standouts, whereas in the theatrical, he really wasn't. So, seeing all these potential futures with Darkseid taking over, you got Wonder Woman burning to the stake, and Aquaman being killed. It's crazy. It's so cool that Zack just does this stuff. Like, even if it has no ramifications, he just imagines all these really apocalyptic scenes, which are just too cool. And I guess what was really cool for me was just seeing that Darkseid was like an emperor figure in this movie, appearing as sort of a hologram. And of course, how could I forget the massive battle scene of the past where Darkseid and his forces were attempting to take over and fight all the old gods, which might just be one of my favorite scenes in the movie, if not my favorite. It was epic and definitely had enough violence to justify that R rating. And seeing lanterns and stuff, it was just really cool stuff. Zeus fighting him. Although a bit disappointing to see Darkseid defeated so easily, but at least we know it was a god who was able to defeat him in that scene. But yeah, we got more than enough of Darkseid. He wasn't just a little tease here. He was in more than enough of the movie to satisfy everyone. And I'm just so pleased. And now on to, well, what most people would consider the best thing Zack's done, which would be Superman. Now, compared to the theatrical, there's not a ton to say that's changed, but we got roughly 10 to 20 minutes of screen time with Superman. He wore the black suit, however, it wasn't really used to heal him. I think it was more of a personal choice to connect back to his roots, which is what has been confirmed by Zack Snyder. I would have probably preferred if they would have gone a route where he had to use the suit to heal up to go back to his full power, but I guess having him fly up to the sun in an epic fashion would be enough for me. I think he's powered up enough. I mean, it was a really cool change. I mean, he looked badass in that black suit, and the little we saw of Superman was epic. He he just like the theatrically goes in there and just says, "Oh hey, Justice League who are struggling to fight Steppenwolf. Well, guess what? I'm gonna take him out in a couple moves. You know, clean up as usual." But yeah, he's Superman. Of course, he can do that to a guy like Steppenwolf. But man, let me tell you, perhaps one of the best scenes in the movie, if not the best, would be when everything was seemingly lost. With the mother boxes connected, it seemed like Darkseid had taken over, and he did. Everybody pretty much died. And the only man that could save everybody was the Flash. He actually broke the time barrier, the speed. He went faster than the speed of light, all that stuff. He prevented it all from happening. And that's when we. And it's more than I would have expected. It stunned me, quite frankly. And couldn't be happier with the use of him in the film. It was much better than the theatrical. We got to see a cool vision of Cyborg, seeing his human self again with his family. But of course, it was just an illusion. But anyways, the Flash scene is too cool. Not to mention earlier in the film when he saves Iris, when he goes to the cafe and saves her from the car wreck. It's just little things like this, you know. And of course, what I would have wanted to mention with Cyborg earlier would be when he helps people, like a woman who's low on funds, he ends up transferring a little bit more funds into her account. Let's just say that, a little bit more. And she couldn't be any happier, so it's just like, man, all the little things that Zack had for these characters are just lovely. And why would Joss Whedon edit these things? It just doesn't make sense. But all in all, this film was fantastic. I would, if I had to give it like a number, probably 9.5. If I give it a half, but definitely a 9, solid 9. The only thing that could have made it perfect would be like if they actually fought Darkseid or more of Superman, but still, compared to the theatrical, it's like miles better. Absolutely miles better than that thing. I never want to see that cut again in my life. This is the Justice League. This is the DCEU at its finest, without any restrictions, without the studio holding him back. Zack Snyder has created the Magnum Opus, and he'll forever go down in history, despite anything that happens in the future. I hope his characters can live on, especially Henry Cavill's Superman, because Man of Steel was the movie that got me into Superman. As a guy who originally didn't care for the character, that movie turned me around completely. Then I rewatched all the old movies and became a fan. But I just don't understand how all this happened. It's a fever dream. It's like, for years, all these people have been demanding the Snyder Cut, and I thought it's like, oh man, it's never going to happen. No way they're going to do that. And yet here we are. They actually went and said, screw the Joss version. Here, we'll finally give you what you've been asking for. Now, I'm not saying that harassing people for what you want is the right thing to do, but eventually, if you are passionate enough about what you care about, and you get your voice heard, things can change. Now, I want that same thing to happen for Henry Cavill as Superman. Of all the actors, I want him to return the most. There's just far too much greatness that's that would be left behind if you didn't keep him in the role. And I guess all I would really hope for the state of the DC universe is just more transparency with WB, justice for Ray Fisher, the Snyderverse to be restored in some fashion. Maybe if he got to do more on HBO Max, that would just be so much fun. But anyways, if this is what we're left with, then truly I am grateful to at least have had this. Thank you all for watching. Thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun to record, and it's just a dream come true, isn't it? Please be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you've seen Justice League, tell me what you think. Do you love Man of Steel as much as me? Just spread the love of Zack Snyder's movies down in the comments. Thank you so much. Be sure to like the video, share the video, subscribe to Warlock Waluigi. Thank you, and good night.